Share screen, share, and play. There we go. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today, November 19th, 2024, depending upon when and the time you're watching this. So today, do's and don'ts with sellers. So we won't keep you too long today, but always remember to reach out to Debbie or myself. Happy to go more in detail than one-on-one questions. But go ahead, Deb, run with it.
This is part two of what we were talking about last week. So the DOJ and NAR's settlement request to us, firm requests, that is, that we follow these new rules and such. So I'm just doing what I did last week is I'll read you what they say to us, and then we can discuss a little if we need to and stuff. So clearly and frequently demonstrate your value. Early in the relationship, emphasize your unique expertise and experience, and explain that one of the core reasons to use a realtor instead of just a real estate licensee is that realtors are required to act in the client's best interest under the code of ethics, which is what we should all be telling people. You need to remind people on a daily, I feel like, that we do have to follow code of ethics, because a lot of people think, oh no, they just do whatever they want to do, and that's why they're in trouble now because they're crooks and such like that, and we're not by any means. So you need to puff your chest up and be proud of the fact that you do follow the code of ethics. And when you're talking to your sellers, emphasize that. Let them know, hey, there's no shenanigans going on here. We have to follow rules just like everybody else. Explain what an offer of compensation is and why a buyer may opt to seek a buyer's agent compensation from the seller. So in other words, why is the buyer's agent buyer asking the seller to pay their agent? Inform the seller that covering all or a portion of the cost of the buyer's agent services may increase the potential buyer pool for their home. There's a big one right there. This is because it reduces upfront costs that may be prohibitive for some prospective buyers, particularly first-time home buyers, low-income buyers, or for the underdeserved communities. Make sure to emphasize that it is the seller's choice whether an offer of compensation is made, and when the practice of offers of compensation is consistent with your business practices. If an offer of compensation is made, inform sellers that the offer of compensation may be marketed off the MLS. I'm sorry, I almost read that wrong. Important that you can market it off the MLS. Not on the MLS, which is what I almost said. You should also inform your sellers that buyers may ask the seller to cover some or all of the buyer agent fee as part of the purchase agreement. It's always up to the seller whether they want to accept this type of request. So it's basically telling you to open the line of communication with your seller and let them know why it's a good idea for them to be paying buyers agents, right?
Exactly. And I honestly have seen this. I mean, at the beginning, agents were getting nervous about the change, but now more and more agents are seeing, well, at least the way I view it, this kind of conversation is a lot easier to have these kind of conversations with sellers than trying to convince a seller at the time of listing how much they should pay a buyer's agent without even knowing what's going to happen with future offers or anything. This is
Yeah.
so much easier. And I am seeing some agents, more, not a lot, but more, are feeling way more comfortable taking on listings than they did before. Most people, a lot of agents, you always say, well, I don't want to work with listings because they didn't want to have those hard conversations with how to what they were charging, what they had to pay, should pay a buyer's agent, what they should advertise on the MLS. Now there's a lot less stress in the conversations now. I mean, there's still some agents that still don't understand it and don't like it, but more and more are seeing how much easier of a conversation it really, really is. So,
Yeah, I agree. Prior to signing, we're still in the dues section here. Prior to signing a listing agreement, ensure the seller understands their options. Help them to understand their options while continuing to seek fair compensation for your services. Ensure they know compensation is fully negotiable and not set by law. And I think that's been drilled into our brains now for the last year. So hopefully everybody gets it. It's not set by law and they are fully negotiable, even at the time of the offer. Get prior written approval from the seller before offering compensation. Clearly disclose and get approval in writing from the seller before offering any compensation or making a payment to another agent representing a buyer. Um, that goes along with your exclusive right to sell. Those of you that work with Homestar, you will see the major change. It's not really a major change, but it is a change to our listing agreement where we have things separated out even more so than we had before. So that'll help you with your conversations. Don't you feel that's
Oh,
correct?
oh, definitely. I love that you should start everything. And a lot of agents felt at the beginning, well, that they were nervous about saying this, that thinking that they would make less money. I'm not going to give an example of a percentage, but some agents
Mhm.
like when I tell people it's all commission is 100% negotiable, doesn't mean less for you. I think it calms people down. Oh, it's all negotiable. Because I have some agents that are technically making more money the last few months or a higher percentage than they normally did because they put a higher value on their time and effort than they did before. When some agents used to say, well, this is how it's normally is. This is a normal commission. This is normal market this, normal market that. Now saying it's 100% negotiable.
Yep.
So when you throw out a number and say it's 100% negotiable, some people feel more comfortable like, okay, wow, that's if you're telling me it's 100% negotiable and you're saying this is your number, they might feel a lot more comfortable than you saying, hey, this is my number and this is how it's always been and should be. And it's a typical commission. And they feel constrained.
Yeah.
This is what you have to pay and should pay because that's what the market pays. Could have been lower than, hey, everything's negotiable and this is what I charge. And that's what
Yep.
some if that makes sense. Yes, everything's negotiable, but that doesn't mean you have to negotiate it. You're making less money. So I think again, going through this for months with hundreds and hundreds of agents, I see some agents were scared of telling people it's 100% negotiable because they didn't have the strength or the confidence to tell them what they charge. So they always used to default, well, this is how it normally is. So they didn't have to have that conversation, right? And some agents are
Yeah.
taking not I would say the word advantage, but they're taking being open to and saying, okay, this is a situation, this is the house, the seller, this is the listing I'm going to do, this is how much work I'm going to put into it, this is how much effort, this is how many showings, this is how I think, this is what I feel my time and effort and expertise is worth. It's I think it's great. It's been working out great for a lot of agents. So
I agree.
next slide. Oh,
No,
oh.
this next part on the right is important because it says inform the seller that the buyer may seek compensation for their agent. So even if the seller decides not to offer compensation to a buyer's agent, inform the seller that it's possible that a buyer may request compensation for their agent, which means that even up to and including the offer, you're still negotiating that number. So even if you have a seller who flat out tells you, I am never paying a buyer's agent and I'm not check marking this box here because I am not paying them, right?
Mhm.
They still can ask them. And it just depends on what the offer is. If the offer is good enough, maybe they'll change their mind, right? So never say
Exactly.
never.
Right. Yeah.
Keep,
Saying there's nothing that a seller can put in a listing agreement to stop a buyer from asking. They could, if they could write in the account, well, I'm not doing any repairs, I'm not paying any buyers, I'm not doing any of that. Great. I hope we find something exactly what you want and we're going to work for that. But I can't stop a buyer. Just kind of like saying I'm selling my house for 200,000. I can't guarantee everybody's going to come in at 200,000. Some
yeah,
people are 190. You can't guarantee the price. We can't guarantee the terms, but you have the ultimate, like you said, Deb, you have the ultimate decision. But in any agents out there, if you don't feel comfortable or if you're coming across this at a listing, time of signing a listing agreement and don't have comfort to explain this to a seller to get to the next step and get it signed, let us know. Debbie and I'll explain the things you should say to them to make them feel comfortable. You'll never have to sell your house for terms that you don't agree to, but
Yeah.
we can't stop them from seeing everything. So.
This next part is for you guys as agents. Make sure you're communicating with other brokers, and identify the best offer for your seller and fulfill your duty as their agent. Not what makes more sense to you, but what makes sense to the seller. We all know that, right? Answer the phone when the appraisers call, as they need to know details of the transactions they're analyzing, including the sales they consider as potential comparables. Um, Something that I just want to throw this tidbit out there. It has nothing at all to do with the buyer agency agreements and stuff, but it brought it up to my mind. Um, with this is that you can make a little packet for an appraiser if you want, with the comparables and why you chose them, and leave it at the house when they're doing the appraisal. They will take the information, and then sometimes it really helps them try and figure out where your mindset was. Doesn't mean that you are say the word, coercing them in any
Right,
way,
exactly.
because we know
Right.
you can't do that, and they won't even accept that. But providing additional information is always good. Same with if they've done a lot of repairs or a lot of upgrades and stuff, they can leave those lists there too, because then that's less conversation they have to have. Appraisers do a lot more than you think that they do. And if you help them as the listing agent, figure out where your mindset was, a lot of them do appreciate that. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
You got it. That's good. The
Okay, now we're
don'ts.
getting into the don'ts. There's not very much here, thank goodness. So don't use the MLSs to make offers of compensation. Of course, we know we can't do that because they took it off the MLS, right? So the settlement practice changes prohibit offers of the compensation from being made on the MLS. This prohibition applies to any MLS field. Relatedly, do not use MLS data or data feeds to establish another platform to host offers of compensation. And I haven't really seen anybody trying to do this. I think they drilled that into our brains from the very beginning. Don't try and skirt the system, because they're not going to let you. Don't
It's not,
communicate. Go ahead.
I was going to say, and there's no need to.
Right.
It's that, so there's, I don't, it hurts. I think it would hurt our sellers more than help them to try to, so there's not just because it's the rule, it's not good to do. So not
Right.
because it's a law, not because it's MLS rule, it's just it's not helpful. But go ahead.
Don't communicate the offer of compensation without your seller's instructions. If the seller decides to authorize an offer of compensation, the seller decides whether and when the agent can communicate that amount of compensation. Well, watch your listing agreements. Ours has it all separated out. And if you don't have clarity on it, ask your seller. So you're saying this right here. Does that mean when they call me, I'm supposed to tell them that? Yes or no, right?
Exactly. And I always, my suggestion to our listing agents is that whatever your seller says, I say always communicate that. I suggest verbally with the other agent because it's verbal. It's not something in stone. There's nothing guaranteeing that until an offer is written. It's all signed and agreed to. And if you do put it in some type of text or email, always put something with an acceptable offer. My seller gave me the
Right.
authorization to say, I'm just using it as an example, 2% or 3% to a buyer's agent with an acceptable offer. So I remind agents when it's our buyer's agents, because some of our buyer's agents are calling and said, oh, this listing agent said they're offering this. I go, that's just verbal. You still need an acceptable offer. They might change it on you. They can, yes. It's kind of like when the seller says, well, my seller's open to paying closing costs. And then or they even put that in the MLS. I mean, well, there's a little boxes that are open up for seller concessions, but it has to be with an acceptable offer. They could still change it and you say no.
Yeah.
So it's not in stone until it's on that buyer agent compensation agreement or, well, with our buyer's agent. So. So,
For instance, if a seller wanted the buyer or the buyer's agent to initiate negotiation on the amount of the buyer's agent compensation before disclosing the amount authorized. So that's what he just said. And then conversely, the listing agent should not withhold the offer of compensation from a buyer broker when the seller has instructed them to make the offer known to off MLS to attract the buyers. So if they tell you to publicize it, then publicize it,
right,
right? If they
right,
tell you, if they don't tell you, I don't know, one way or another, then you just don't, right?
right, right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Next. Don't share your listing agreement with competitors. Everybody knows that that is private, right? Well, guess
Right.
what? So is that buyer's agency agreement. So don't ask for copies of written buyer's agreements. And you
Right.
guys don't send it over to the other side. You would never give up your listing agreement. Don't give up your buyer agency agreements. This is on the notes for both sides, the buyers and the sellers. I'm just reminding you all. Nobody, no listing agent should ever be asking you for your buyer's agreement, right? That's private. That's private information.
I
Okay.
agree. There you go. All
This
right.
I thought was really cute. It's National Gingerbread Cookie Day on November 21st, so that's in a couple days, and I thought this was adorable. Just like the perfect gingerbread cookie, the perfect home is all about the right ingredients, location, charm, and a little bit of magic. You can post things like this on your social media. You can make little tags and give giveaways to people when you do your pop buys or it's the holidays. Maybe you're making up gift holiday bags for people and stuff like that. All kinds of really good information. And like I said before, Etsy is your friend. And then also Canva is stepping up their game with a bunch of stuff too that's free. There is a paid version for Canva and it's not really that expensive. So if you're not very creative, you can get a lot more information from Canva that's super cheap. So,
Yep. CEs, the end
yep,
of the
we're winding
year.
down. So I did add something. We were just talking about this, Tony, right before the meeting. So the C21 workplace is going away in December. Okay, so all of you who are with Homestar uh, or Century 21 products know that we have the workplace, which is our Facebook platform. It's going away and they're going to merge with actual Facebook. So here's the little URL. If you miss the email because you don't pay attention to all of those emails and think they're junk, they're not. There's
Right.
the little thing where you can, as an agent, sign up for the specific group in Facebook. Okay. They will ask you a couple questions because I did this morning. They'll ask you who you are, what brokerage you're with, what is your position there, and stuff like that. And then get one way to verify that you're actually an agent. And I just gave them my personal website so that they could see that I'm actually an agent. And there you go.
Exactly. And that's it. Let's get out of that and we'll stop my share. And there we are. Well, thanks for joining us today on November 19th. And if you have any questions, reach out to Debbie or myself, get on our calendar. If you want to get on my calendar, tonytalk.net, or email or call the office and Debbie will make some time for you. But this is a lot of great information and it doesn't matter when, because sometimes you might be watching this and it might be 3 months from now.
It doesn't matter.
So this doesn't expire, this
Right.
information, right? Unless there's a law change. It's already changed. I don't think there's any.
Yep.
So, but just reach out to us and we'll help you out. So that's it. And we'll see everybody next week.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.